David, student at the radiology student at OCentro. Today I'll be talking about this chest X-ray that I took and all the steps that came with it and everything else about it. So just to kind of start off, I did this at UT Southwestern Medical Center. This was in the POB division of the hospital, an outpatient clinic. This is the X-ray of a 54-year-old male who had a history of smoking and had a history of working in the construction field. He had mentioned that he was coughing quite a bit in the previous 7 days, and so he decided to come to the doctor to get talk to him to see if they could figure it out. The doctor ended up ordering what's called a PHS unilateral test, also referred to as a 2U chest X-ray, to see if he could help diagnose what was going on. Ultimately, the diagnosis was bronchitis, and that's kind of just the general gist of what happened. So here in the next few minutes, I'm going to give more steps about how I got this picture. Let's see. So the steps for to take this type of X-ray. So what we do is we go to the clinic. When we're in the clinic, we have somebody call out a name, bring a patient to the back room, and what we'll do is we'll get their history as we're walking. We'll get their name. We'll confirm their name and their birthday, so make sure we have the right patient. If it's a male, we just make sure that they don't have anything in their shirts, like a pin, maybe they're wearing a chain or anything. Same thing with females, but in addition with females, they can't have bras on, so we'll have them remove bras. In this case, it was a male, so no problem there. He just had a regular t-shirt on, so we could shoot right through it. We didn't have to have him remove it or anything like that. We brought him into the room. I introduced him to the rest of the staff, the other 2 or 3 techs that were in the room with me. Again, I had him confirm his name and his birthday, so they had also verification that it was the right patient. Excuse me. That's not it. Yes. Anyway. And so, yeah, we made sure we had the right patient. So what we do is I take him to what's called the wall bucky, and he goes up to this wall board. He puts his chest up against it, and his back is to the actual machine that takes the X-ray. He has to have both arms around the board to remove the scapula out of the lung field, and he lifts his chin up to make sure there's no chin in the picture. He'll roll his shoulders forward, and to make sure to give more emphasis on getting the scapula out of the lung field. And then I myself will put a shield around his waist to make sure to protect the metal shielding, and just for more protection of the patient. And so once we have all of that set up, I'll go to the back area of the control panel and have my hand on the rotor, and I'll tell the patient to take in a deep breath and then to blow it all the way out, take in another deep breath and to hold it, and at that point is where I make the exposure for this particular image. What you don't see is the lateral picture that we take because it was a 2-view order. But just for steps for that, we'll have them, once we verify that this is the picture that's good and there's nothing missing, we have all the criteria we need, we'll have him turn, put his left side of his body onto that board, and then hold on to these bars that are above his head to make sure the humerus are out of the way and don't end up in the lateral view of the lung field. And we'll have the same breathing instructions where we'll have him take in a deep breath, let it out, take in another deep breath and hold it. And again, that's where we would take that image. Again, you don't see this one because this particular case study is just talking about the PHS view. But that's pretty much the step-by-steps of how to take a 2D chest X-ray. That's what I did here in this case. And we verified that the images were good, made sure that nothing was missing, that we got everything we needed. Once we saw that we did, we told the patient, okay, you're pretty much done, and if the doctor sees anything in particular, he'll go ahead and give you a call and let you know what to do next, and that's kind of the end of the interaction there. As far as criteria, what should be demonstrated? So this is what a general chest X-ray looks like, a PA view anyway. What the main emphasis on the reason for doing most chest X-rays is to see what's in the lung field, to make sure. So if the lung field is the main focus of a chest X-ray, of course, obviously, we want to make sure both lungs are totally in the picture and none of it's clipped off on any point, whether it be the lateral sides or the superior, inferior, aspects of the lungs. As well as making sure that the scapula are out of the lung field, which in this particular case, we got them as far out as we could. Here you see his right one, here you see his left one. Typically, they'd normally be more in the lung field had we not had them wrap their arms around that board and roll the shoulders forward. They do that because they like to get both scapula out of lung field to be able to see it visually better, for the doctors to see it better, see the lung fields better. Let's see, obviously we don't want any rotation in this type of picture. Rotation would be indicated by maybe the clavicles, one being a little bit higher than the other, or shortening of one side of the lung field. If they were rotated backwards a little bit, you would see one of them skinnier, one of them bigger. Just typical obvious signs of rotation, which aren't here, at least not to my knowledge. Here you see the spine there, the spinous processes going up and down the spinal column there, pretty much centered. So that's a good indicator as well that there's hardly, if any, rotation. If there was, you would see these tiny aspects here on the spine more on one side or the other. And you don't really see that there. You do see slight curvature, so it's not totally 100% straight spinal column, but that has nothing to do with rotation. That's pretty average in most people. So not everybody's spine is going to be perfect all the way up and down. So criteria-wise, to me it has all the necessary things that make a chest X-ray that can be used to diagnose. So the marker, of course, is in the right place. It's out of the lung field. We don't want it in the lung field. It's here in the shoulder area where it's not covering any anatomy of interest. So that's why we keep it up there and out of the way, and it's on the right side of the body. I should say the correct side of the body. It shows up on here backwards because once the image is processed, it's actually flipped to show the human body in anatomical position. So, sorry. So, yeah, that's in a good spot there. So, as far as positioning, like I said, positioning on this one seems to be pretty close to being, you know, I don't want to ever say it's a perfect picture, but I don't think there's a whole lot that can be really done to make it better. If anything, this right clavicle is probably slightly higher than the left one, maybe by a tad, but still that's nothing that would warrant a repeat image and, you know, give the doctor any trouble. So positioning, I think, looks pretty good. The technical factors on this particular image, so at the POB clinic there at UT, we utilize what's called the AEC and the APR, and that helps us give us an easy technical factor range. So in this particular image, we use 120 kV at 5 mass. The high kV is up there to be able to penetrate, as well as the mass is enough to give us what we need to see. And so the patient was pretty average size. He was the average male, I should say. He works in construction, so he was a little bit bigger. But we didn't, not big enough that we needed to raise the kV to be able to penetrate more. So those were the technical factors on there. We didn't, like I said, we didn't need to up the mass or anything like that. So as far as suggestions to make a better picture, I think leaving it 120 at 5 is pretty ideal. As far as anatomy, for 10 or more parts, I had them here labeled. So here we have the apex of the lung. There's two, obviously, because there's two lungs. Here is an air-filled trachea going right up and down the middle of the spine. It's in the same aspect of the body, so it lines up pretty much perfectly with the spine. Your clavicle, your right one, and your left one are both here. The left lung, obviously, that's the anatomy of interest that we want, and the right lung is there too. The right primary bronchus, it's a little bit harder to see because the bronchus isn't exactly something that can be seen because it's just air, essentially. But if you look really closely, you can see it come down here. Here's the left one that leads into the left one, and the right one is a little bit more horizontal. So, more vertical, because it's the right lung is longer than the left one on just about everybody because of the heart taking space in the left field, in the left side of the body. So that's why the right lung on most people is going to look bigger. You see the heart shadow here, with, like I said, it's kind of taking up space there. Some ribs. Also, I failed to mention earlier that 10 or more ribs is something you also want to see when you're looking at the lung field, because it gives a good idea of how you're getting all the anatomy you need just by counting the ribs alone. Here, I mean, you can start at the top and count down, and there's at least 10 ribs there. The right hemidiaphragm is here. The left one is a little bit lower down here, and your L spine is starting here at the very end of the last spine that connects ribs. So L spine is way down here. Looks like L1 would probably be right here. T12 is probably about right there. It's kind of tough to see with those bottom ribs always, but and then of course the right and left claustrophoretic angles of the lungs are visualized as well. So that alone is 10 different anatomy. I mean, if you wanted to add more just for fun, you could look at the C spine up here, like I mentioned earlier, the scapular there. Here you can see a hint of the humeral heads there. The acromion and the coracoid process are back there with in connection with the clavicles. So, but yeah, that's 10 areas of interest there. And let's see, artifacts. There weren't any artifacts in this picture. Like I said, when I first met the guy, I made sure I didn't make sure that he wasn't wearing any chains or had anything in his pockets or anything like that. So we made sure that that wasn't a problem. And the doctor's impression was that, again, it was diagnosed as bronchitis. So apparently the radiologist was fine with this picture. He didn't ask for anything more